So in this explainer, we're diving deep into a world where the biggest choice you can make isn't between good and evil. It's between existence and the seductive pull of nothingness. We're going to follow a story that asks one of the toughest questions you can imagine. Let's get into it. You know, this single line from our source text, it just perfectly sets the stage. It speaks of this spiritual decay, this slow surrender to oblivion. And it doesn't start with some big explosion, but with the quiet acceptance of a comfortable, gilded cage.
All right, so here's our roadmap. We're going to follow the path of a figure known only as the Wanderer. We'll kick things off in the stagnant comfort of the Abbey, then confront the philosophy that runs the place, face a brutal truth out in the desert, and endure a pretty demonic test. After that, we'll witness a moment of incredible triumph, and finally, try to understand the new logic that's born from that choice.
Okay, so our story begins here, in a place that promises sanctuary, but really, it only delivers a slow, creeping decay. This isn't a home. It's more like a beautifully constructed tomb for the living.
So what's life actually like inside the Abbey? Well, it's really defined by everything it's missing. There's no chaos, there's no passion, no lightning, as the text says. The people there just exist in this cold gloom, going through the motions, performing their rituals, and secretly, they're all just waiting for what's called the terminal shudder. In other words, the end. They've traded the risk and thrill of actually living for the absolute certainty of a slow, comfortable fade to black.
So what's the driving force behind this collective death wish? It's a philosophy. It's this insidious ideology that whispers the sweet promise of an end to all struggle.
At its core, the logic of zero is basically the intellectual justification for just giving up. It's the Freudian death drive, thanatos, but it's been turned into an entire belief system. The argument goes that being born in the first place was the original catastrophe, so the only logical goal is to return to the silence of non-existence.
And this image of the clock tower, man, it just perfectly captures this philosophy in action. The clock in the Abbey doesn't just mark time, it celebrates the end of time. The 13th hour is impossible, right? It's a symbol that time's loud, messy, vital proclamations are finally over and that silence has won.
But what happens if someone actually leaves the Abbey? Well, they step into a place that's far more terrifying, a vast, empty desert. Out here, there are no comforting rituals, no walls to hide behind, only a brutal confrontation with the self, all centered around one powerful object.
And this slide right here really gets to the heart of the whole conflict. On the left, you've got the ebony clock tower from the Abbey. It stands for stagnation, and it literally measures the descent into nothingness. But on the right, you have the hourglass of becoming. It doesn't measure an end, it symbolizes the totality of your entire existence. The clock tower promises silence, while the hourglass presents the heavy, crushing burden of recurrence, of having to live through everything you've ever been.
It's called an instrument of truth, for good reason. It forces you to see yourself with absolutely no filters. Every mistake, every moment of vanity, every single time your spirit was rotting into the void, it's all right there, reflected back at you in this fractured mirror of your own life.
And out here, in this desert of truth, an entity appears. It's the personification of the logic of zero itself, and it's here to make the Wanderer an offer that is both a gift and the ultimate test.
Now, this demon, he's not your typical devil. He's the voice of reason for anyone who wants to quit. He mocks the will to live and offers the crimson gift, the final, clean exit of total erasure. But before he gives you that gift, he has a challenge, a wager that's designed to break any spirit.
The Daemon's challenge is pure Nietzsche. It's the test of amor fati, which means love of one's fate. He basically asks the Wanderer, would you be willing to live this exact life, with all its pain and all its failure, over and over and over again for all eternity? No changes, no edits.
And this right here is the core of the wager. The Daemon is betting that the unvarnished truth of your life, what the text calls the blight of revelation, will be so unbearable that you will beg for an escape. He's convinced that anyone would choose the void over the eternal repetition of their own flawed, messy self.
But as the wind howls across this wasteland, the Wanderer makes a choice. This is the climax of our story, a decision that doesn't just save a life, it creates an entirely new way of being.
He says no. He sees the Daemon's offer for exactly what it is, not some merciful restoration to peace, but just simple cowardice. The logic of zero, he realizes, is just a beautiful, poetic excuse to run away from the agonizing and beautiful tension of being alive.
So how does he do it? How does he find that strength? Well, first, he rejects this whole idea that non-existence is a homecoming. Second, he accepts the entire, full, heavy weight of who he is, warts and all. Third, and this is so crucial, he understands that no one else can pardon him or judge him. It is his life. And finally, with that realization, he acts. He turns the hourglass.
In that moment, by turning the hourglass, the Wanderer says yes. Yes to all of it. Yes to the pain, the failure, the joy, the struggle, all of it, forever. And this yes is a defiant roar of life that completely drowns out all those quiet dying whispers coming from the Abbey.
This triumph creates a completely new philosophy. If the Abbey runs on the logic of zero, the Wanderer now possesses the logic of one. I mean, this is the ultimate transformation. The fire that threatened to dismantle him, that painful truth of his own history, he forges it into the fire of becoming. The burden of repetition becomes a testament of dignity. The logic of one says that a single, unified, flawed life, when you fully embrace it, is the ultimate victory over the void.
Just look at the finality of these two paths. The Abbey's followers, they get their peace, they get their homecoming to nothing, but the Wanderer gets something else entirely. He finds meaning, not in peace, but in that agonizing tension. He chooses the storm again and again, and in doing that, he achieves this state of perpetual, vital becoming.
And this is why his triumph is ongoing. There's no final destination. There's no heaven, no rest. His reward is simply the strength to continue, the vitality to keep existing. His reward is to become a soul that has faced the ultimate argument for silence, and has chosen instead to make a sound. And so this dark fable leaves us with the Daemon's question, but now it's turned to us, looking at the full, heavy weight of your own history, with no edits and no escape. Would you turn the hourglass?